Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes something powerful. Being ghosted is not a sign that she wasn't enough. It's proof that the other person couldn't handle who she already is. At 50 plus, you're not auditioning for anyone's approval. You're not waiting for someone to choose you. You are stepping into a chapter where your standards rise, your confidence sharpens, and your time becomes too valuable for disappearing acts. If someone ghosts you, they didn't reject you. They revealed themselves. And today, I'm going to show you why that revelation is your greatest opportunity to rise stronger, clearer, and more unstoppable than ever before. When you've lived enough life to reach your 50s, you carry a kind of wisdom, resilience, and quiet strength that younger women haven't even begun to understand. Yet even with that experience, ghosting can still sting. It can still catch you off guard, still poke at your confidence, still make you question your value for a moment. But what I want you to understand right now is this. Being ghosted says nothing about your worth, your desirability, or your ability to build something meaningful. It only reveals one thing: someone else's emotional immaturity. At this stage in your life, you are not learning who you are. You already know. You've lived through heartbreaks, transitions, reinventions, and triumphs that have shaped you into someone extraordinary. And yet, here comes a person who can't even offer you the basic courtesy of communication. That is not a reflection of failure. That is a filter doing its job. Too many women tell themselves that ghosting means they weren't interesting enough, attractive enough, or exciting enough. But you don't need to audition for anyone. You are not a performance. You are not here to convince a grown adult to show up. Anyone who disappears without a word simply proves they are incapable of creating the kind of relationship you deserve, one built on honesty, presence, and consistency. Think about what ghosting actually reveals. It reveals a lack of courage. It reveals an inability to have uncomfortable conversations. It reveals a person who chooses the path of least resistance rather than the path of integrity. Ghosting is not the behavior of someone ready for a grown-up relationship. It's the behavior of someone who hasn't yet learned how to manage their own feelings, let alone someone else's. Why would you mourn the loss of someone who can't even send a simple message? The moment someone ghosts you, you haven't been rejected. You've been redirected. Redirected away from someone who would eventually disappoint you and towards someone who will actually match your emotional depth. But the real shift happens when you stop internalizing the disappearance and start celebrating it as early information. Your time is too valuable to spend decoding the behavior of someone who already showed you they're not reliable. At 50 plus, you've earned the right to be with someone who makes your life easier, not harder. Someone who adds peace, not confusion. Someone who chooses clarity over vanishing acts. If a person disappears, let them stay gone. You don't need explanations from those who never intended to invest. You don't need closure from someone who didn't have the courage to communicate. Closure isn't something you wait for, it's something you choose. And here's what closure sounds like. If you cannot value me, you cannot have me. It's that simple. Not emotional, not dramatic, just truth. This is the moment where you reclaim your story, where you remind yourself that ghosting is not a rejection, it's a revelation. A revelation that someone wasn't capable of showing up for you. A revelation that frees you to move forward without guilt, without overthinking, and without chasing someone who lacks the capacity to meet you where you are. This chapter of your life is not about trying to fit into someone else's world. It's about inviting only those who belong in yours. And not everyone deserves access. Not everyone earns a seat at your table. You decide who gets to stay. You decide who gets to experience your energy. You decide who is worthy of your time. Dating after 50 is not about competing with youth. In fact, you're not competing with anyone. You have depth, you have clarity, you have zero interest in playing games. And that gives you a massive advantage. Because the right person isn't looking for perfect skin, endless availability, or blind acceptance. They're looking for a woman who knows who she is. And you've already mastered that. When someone ghosts you, it doesn't reduce your value, it exposes theirs. So instead of replaying conversations, analyzing messages, or blaming yourself, shift the perspective. Ask yourself a better question. What does their behavior tell me about their readiness, their character, their capacity? When you look through that lens, ghosting becomes an early gift, not a painful goodbye. You deserve a partner who communicates like an adult, a partner who doesn't leave you wondering, a partner who knows how to show up, not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is the real currency of connection. Anyone can give attention for a moment, but not everyone can offer presence. And presence is what builds relationships. If someone ghosts you, they lack the emotional presence required to be part of your future. That's it. You don't need to rewrite yourself, reshape yourself, or shrink yourself. You don't need to become more impressive, more forgiving, or more available. You only need to keep being the woman who refuses to settle for crumbs. Let this be the turning point, where you date from a place of abundance, not fear, a place of self-trust, not self-doubt, a place of standards, not scarcity, because the greatest love stories for many women don't happen in their 20s or 30s. They happen when they finally understand what they bring to the table and refuse to let anyone treat it casually. And if you're thinking, but dating feels different now, you're right. It is different, but you're different too. You're stronger, you're clearer, you're less tolerant of nonsense. That's not a disadvantage, that's your superpower. Younger versions of you may have chased clarity from the wrong people. You don't have to do that anymore. Now, you don't audition, you observe, you don't beg, you allow, you don't chase, you choose. If a person disappears, it's not your job to pull them back, it's your cue to move forward. Your life doesn't stall because someone couldn't communicate. You don't pause your joy because someone lacked maturity. You don't dim your light because someone else couldn't handle your shine. You get to keep going. You get to keep loving. You get to keep showing up as the woman who knows her worth. And the right person, the one with emotional availability, maturity, and integrity, will not disappear. They will recognize your value and match it with their actions. Ghosting does not diminish you. It frees you. It removes those who are not meant for your journey. It clears space for someone far more aligned. And each time you choose yourself, instead of chasing someone who ran, you strengthen your confidence, refine your standards, and step deeper into the powerful woman you've become. So move on not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not with fear, but with strength. Not because someone ghosted you, but because you finally understand this simple truth. Anyone who disappears was never capable of the love you're destined to receive. And the beauty of this moment in your life is that you get to respond differently than you ever would have years ago back then. Maybe you would have replayed things endlessly in your mind. You might have asked yourself whether you should have worn something different, said something different, or shown more enthusiasm. You might have blamed yourself for someone else's lack of effort. But now you know better. Now you understand that another person's disappearance is not an invitation to question your value. It's a reminder to protect it. You've lived enough life to know that people reveal themselves very quickly if you're paying attention. And ghosting is one of the clearest revelations of all. Someone who disappears without a word has told you everything you need to know about their emotional bandwidth. When someone shows you they can't handle the bare minimum, you don't chase them. You thank the moment for saving you from a future of confusion. This is where your strength becomes your guide, because when you've reached this stage in life, you've already learned something essential. Ace is priceless. You no longer have the patience to invite chaos into your world. You've worked too hard to build emotional stability, too long to cultivate inner peace, too much to tolerate anything that disrupts it. Ghosting isn't the loss of something meaningful. It's the removal of something unstable. And if you slow down long enough to really reflect, you'll see the truth. The pain of ghosting doesn't come from losing the person. It comes from losing the possibility. The possibility you imagined, the potential you invested in, the story you allowed yourself to dream about. But possibility without effort is just fantasy. Potential without follow-through is just imagination. You deserve someone who brings reality to the table, not just romantic daydreams. When you look at ghosting through that lens, it becomes easier to see it not as a rejection, but as information. And information is powerful. Information allows you to move with intention instead of insecurity. It allows you to decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. It allows you to see that you are not at the mercy of someone else's inconsistency. A person who disappears has eliminated themselves from your future. That's not your loss, it's your liberation. Because now you get to redirect your attention to things that truly matter. You get to invest your time in relationships that are reciprocal. You get to nurture connections with people who show up, who speak openly, who communicate clearly, who treat you with the respect you've earned. You get to spend time creating a life that feels full, regardless of who enters or exits it. And in that fullness, the right person will find you. But here's what's even more important. Moving on from ghosting isn't just about letting go of the person who disappeared. It's about letting go of the story you might be tempted to tell yourself afterward. The story that whispers you weren't enough. The story that suggests maybe you misread things. The story that asks, what if you had done something differently? Those questions are traps. They keep you stuck in a loop that leads nowhere. Instead, ask yourself a question that moves you forward. What do I want my love life to look like from this point on? Because you're not here to chase someone who didn't choose you. You're here to choose the life and the love that align with your standards. You're here to choose consistency over chemistry, respect over romantic fantasy, emotional maturity over potential. You're here to choose yourself. And that choice shifts everything. It means you stop taking inconsistency personally. You stop measuring your worth by how someone else behaves. You stop trying to interpret silence from someone who lacks the courage to speak. You stop assuming the role of fixer or rescuer. You stop shrinking yourself to make someone more comfortable. You stop apologizing for wanting effort, communication, and emotional presence. You start honoring what you've learned. You start trusting your intuition. You start setting boundaries with confidence. You start recognizing red flags sooner. You start valuing your time more intentionally. You start embracing a new chapter with clarity instead of confusion. Ghosting no longer becomes a wound. It becomes a filter, a very effective filter that removes those who don't deserve to be part of your next chapter. And as you move forward, something powerful happens. You begin to approach dating from abundance, not scarcity. Scarcity makes you tolerate breadcrumbs. Abundance reminds you that connection is everywhere. Scarcity makes you cling to the wrong people. Abundance helps you remove them with grace. Scarcity makes you doubt whether you'll find love again. Abundance reminds you that love doesn't expire, it evolves with you. You've lived enough life to know that love is not bound by age, timelines, or expectations. Love doesn't show up only in your 20s or 30s. It shows up when you're aligned with your worth. And right now, you are more aligned than you have ever been. You know what you want. You know what you won't tolerate. You know how you deserve to be treated. You know the value of your presence. You know the power of your heart. And you know that anyone who disappears is simply someone incapable of meeting you at the level you're standing on. So instead of lowering yourself to match their inconsistency, elevate yourself further, raise your standards, raise your expectations, raise your awareness, raise your energy, because the higher you rise, the fewer people get access to you. And that's exactly how it should be. When someone ghosts you, don't lean into self-doubt. Lean into self-trust. Trust that their disappearance is direction. Trust that your future holds someone far more capable. Trust that your journey is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust that letting someone go creates space for someone extraordinary. Trust that you are not being abandoned. You are being aligned. And when it comes to dating at 50 plus, let this be the mantra you carry forward. You no longer pursue people. You pursue peace. You no longer beg for clarity. You expect it. You no longer chase potential. You recognize patterns. You no longer settle for attention. You require effort. You no longer shrink to fit. You shine to attract. You no longer fear being alone. You fear wasting time with the wrong person. The woman you are now is powerful. She is seasoned. She is self-aware. She is emotionally intelligent. She is not here to audition. She is here to choose. And she chooses herself first. So when someone ghosts you, let them be gone. Let their absence be the gift. Let their silence be the closure. Let air behavior be the lesson. Let their departure be the clearing that creates space for the level of love you deserve. You don't need to look back. You don't need to chase. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. You don't need to convince. You simply continue forward, knowing that the right person for you will never disappear. They will show up. They will stay consistent. They will communicate. They will choose you willingly. They will meet you with the maturity, presence, and respect that someone of your strength and depth deserves. Ghosting doesn't define you. Your response does, and your response is to rise, not because someone left, but because you're finally stepping into the love, confidence, and power that were always yours. And the moment you rise above someone's disappearance, you reclaim something far more valuable than the connection you thought you were losing. You reclaim your emotional authority. That authority is the power to decide how you interpret events, how you carry yourself, how you love, and how you move forward. It's the power to respond from strength instead of insecurity, from wisdom instead of impulsiveness, from truth instead of fear. And once you embrace that, ghosting becomes less of a wound and more of a moment that reminds you of who you truly are. Because you are not the woman you were 20 or 30 years ago. Back then, you may have tolerated behaviors that made you uncomfortable. You may have explained away red flags. You may have accepted breadcrumbs disguised as affection. You may have held on to someone because you didn't yet understand the fullness of your own value. But now you are a woman who has lived, learned, healed, grown, and transformed. You are a woman who understands that her life is already rich, already meaningful, already full, even before a partner enters the picture. And when someone ghosts you at this stage, you don't break. You clarify what you're no longer willing to entertain. You clarify the level of communication you require. You clarify the emotional maturity that must be present. You clarify the standards that reflect your worth. There is nothing childish about wanting honesty. There is nothing unreasonable about wanting consistency. There is nothing demanding about wanting someone who knows how to use their words. People who claim that ghosting is normal or just how dating works nowadays are people who've settled for behavior that shouldn't be normalized. Disappearing is not maturity. It's avoidance. And avoidance is not a foundation for anything real. You aren't looking for a fling that fades overnight. You aren't looking for a man who can't articulate his feelings. You're looking for someone who has the courage to communicate, even when it's uncomfortable. At 50% plus, your relationship goals are no longer shaped by insecurity or pressure. They're shaped by clarity. You don't have time to waste. You don't have energy to pour into confusion. You don't have interest in guessing games. You don't have the patience for emotional immaturity. You've reached a stage where peace is sacred, and you won't trade that peace for the temporary thrill of someone inconsistent. When someone ghosts you, remember that their silence is protection. Protection from a future where you would have been the one carrying the emotional weight. Protection from a dynamic where you'd be seeking reassurance they were incapable of giving. Protection from a relationship where inconsistency becomes the norm and you're left filling in the gaps with your imagination. Protection from being with someone who couldn't truly meet you. And the more you embrace that truth, the more empowered you become. Instead of feeling replaced, you feel redirected. Instead of feeling unwanted, you feel released. Instead of feeling abandoned, you feel aligned. And alignment is everything. Because when you're aligned with confidence, aligned with self-worth, aligned with clarity, you attract someone who is aligned with you. But moving on from ghosting also means something deeper. It means letting go of the version of you that still believes she has to earn someone's effort. That version of you may still try to decode silence. She may still wonder what she could have done differently. She may still think that better, quieter, more agreeable, or more patient would have changed things. It wouldn't have, because someone who ghosts didn't disappear because you weren't enough. They disappeared because they weren't capable. And once you internalize that truth, something shifts inside you. You stop interpreting someone's inability to show up as your inadequacy. You stop magnifying their absence as a sign that something is wrong with you. You stop letting temporary people create permanent insecurities. You stop allowing inconsistency to cloud your perception of your value. Instead, you begin to value your emotional energy the way you value your time, intentionally, carefully, and selectively. You give it to people who earn it through effort, honesty, and consistency. You invest in connections that feel mutual. You open your heart without opening the door to chaos. You become discerning, not defensive, open, not desperate, hopeful, not naive. And that discernment becomes your greatest strength because now you ask different questions. Instead of, does he like me? You ask, is he reliable? Instead of, does he find me attractive? You ask, does he respect my time? Instead of, will this work? You ask, does he show up emotionally? Or do I have to chase clarity? These questions separate the men who are ready from the men who are merely available. And when you operate from that mindset, ghosting loses its power over you. It becomes a moment, not a meaning, a detail, not a definition, a redirection, not a rejection. This is also the stage in your life where dating becomes more intentional because you finally understand that love is not found in intensity. It's found in consistency. It's not in the butterflies. It's in the follow-through. It's not in the promises. It's in the patterns. And someone who ghosts you has shown you their pattern right away. Use that pattern as informer. Gion, use it as clarity. Use it as a gift because it frees you from wasting months, sometimes years, trying to hold together something that was never stable to begin with. Your heart is too valuable. Your peace is too precious. Your time is too limited. Your standards are too earned, and your soul is too seasoned to settle for anything less than a love that stays. And here's the truth you need to carry forward. The right person for you won't vanish. They won't disappear after a good conversation. They won't go quiet when things get real. They won't run when emotions deepen. They won't shut down because communication feels uncomfortable. They won't treat connection like a game where they dip in and out. The right person will show up not because you chase them, but because they recognize your value and rise to meet it. They will stay. They will communicate. They will care. They will invest. Not perfectly, but consistently. Ghosting is simply the universe removing those who could never offer you that level of connection. And as you move into this new chapter with more confidence, more clarity, and more self-respect than ever before, you start to see that ghosting is not something you need to get over. It's something you grow from. It builds discernment. It sharpens intuition. It reinforces standards. It strengthens boundaries. It deepens your self-worth. And when you combine all of that, you become unstoppable, not because you don't feel disappointment, but because you don't let disappointment define you. You already know that the best chapters in life often begin right after someone exits your story unexpectedly. Ghosting doesn't close your door to love. It removes the wrong person, so the right one can walk through it without obstruction. You are not behind. You are not running out of time. You are not less desirable because someone vanished. You are simply evolving. And as you evolve, your relationships evolve with you. Only those who can meet your emotional maturity, your honesty, your confidence, and your depth will stay. And that's exactly the way it should be.